Well, hello everyone, I'm Postmaster Radio, and this is a very special, albeit cheesy edition of Whose Line Highlights, the official podcast bringing you the highlights from episodes of the sensational improv comedy show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Now, there was no new episode last week, but I can absolutely guarantee that the show will be back with another new episode this Friday night, February 19th, at the usual time, 8/7 Central on the CW network. But for now, I have got a Doo Wop mashup surprise for all of you. I'll explain more in a minute, but first a quick note that if you missed the most recent Whose Line episode of Season 17, you know, the one that marked the comeback of Naima Funk, catch up now via the podcast link in the description. And I also want to let you know this week's Whose Line podcast, the one you're listening to right now, it is also on YouTube, but only for this particular episode of Whose Line Highlights. I thought I'd just do it as a one-time thing, just because this is a bit of a shorter episode than usual. But in the future, yes, if you do want more of the Whose Line podcast, you gotta go to Spreaker, Spotify, and or iHeartRadio. Keep that in mind. But anyway, on with this week's special, and it has to do with Cheese Doo Wops. Now, you know how Doo Wop goes, the musical Whose Line game. Colin, Wayne, and in this case, Garyanthonywilliams, a sensational comedian, who you need to check out, by the way, on the new Netflix show, The Crew. I have yet to check it out myself, but I have seen the trailer and I have full interest in it. It's really exciting. Go check it out when you can on Netflix. But anyway, Colin, Wayne, and Gary, they had to sing like a doo-wop group from the 50s, but they had to sing about Anna, a lady who died tragically in a cheese-related accident. Yeah, I know. There's going to be a chock full of cheese puns in this one, and even more so than you may expect, because, and you probably know this already, especially since I have mentioned this before on the Whose Line podcast, but each taping has a lot of games that can essentially stem multiple episodes just from that one taping. What usually is not the case, though, is two doo-wops with the same lady and the same tragic accident from the same taping. But such was the case, apparently, because going back to season 13 of the show, the US version, there was an episode that had celebrity guest Malcolm Goodwin. There was a doo-wop that was cheese-themed, and then we get another cheese doo-wop in the second episode of season 17, and as it turns out, yeah, you guessed it, both of them are essentially the same doo-wops, but with different verses from Wayne, Colin, and Gary. The ending of both doo-wops is pretty much the same. I'm not sure if they had a better ending going into the second cheese doo-wop, but probably not. So just for the fun of it, especially since, you know, we were off during the 4-day weekend, I thought I'd combine the two cheese doo-wops into one. Yeah, that's kind of the main basis of why you're here. Well, that and one extra thing, because I also asked for your thoughts on the two cheese doo-wops. Which one of them did you love more? We'll get to the results of that little poll and a comment from our Whose Line historian from the Watch Whoseline Tonight team, Spence 12 Metby, after the mashup. But for now, please enjoy the extended Cheese Doo Wop.
I was hanging out with Anna and my cousin Daryl. All of us, we were over there at the Cracker Barrel. And then she choked on cheese. She's died. Oh, sometimes that's how it breathes.
Anna, baby, I miss you too. You're starting to remind me of cheese. By that I mean you're blue. I hope you have such a lovely fate. I mean, our lives are pretty great.
Oh, Anna, you did what you pleased. You used to make paintings totally out of cheese. You drowned in cheese paint. I know it's kind of daft, but when I think of you, I'll think of arts and craft.
Oh, Anna, this is what I said. I used to love her spread on a piece of bread. She's the chick that I will always miss. Cheese Whiz.
And baby, I guess heaven got his wish. 'Cause now you're up there swimming around in Swiss. I don't know, but you are heaven sent. But apparently you are horribly lactose intolerant.
Yeah. Here comes a cheese joke.
I'm just so upset.
Tell him why.
Oh, sweetie. Lived, you shoulda. But you died. That's not good. All alone. How will I fare? Without you, I camembert.
Please, baby, please. This is what happens when you insist we rhyme about friggin' cheese. Oh, you hoped that this would be better, but no, dot, 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 ha, ha, chatter.
Oh boy, what a great cheesy mashup. I hope you guys had as much fun listening to that mashup as I did putting it together. It was so much fun. Now, in case you're wondering, just before we go on, which verses were from which version of the Doo Wops, just for a little Whose Line extra knowledge, because why the heck not? Well, again, the ending with the "this is what happens when you insist we rhyme about freaking cheese," that was the same ending from both Doo Wops, keep that in mind. In terms of the first Cheese Doo Wop from the Malcolm Goodwin episode, the verses were from Wayne, "Sometimes that's how we brie," from Gary, the lactose intolerant pun, and from Colin, the gouda and camembert jokes. From the second episode of season 17, the other Cheese Doo Wop, we have "I was her cheese whiz," the cheese grate joke, and the cheese painting business with arts and craft. So yeah, just to, just in case you were wondering which verses were from which Doo Wop. As for what you guys thought about which of the two Cheese Doo Wops essentially dominated, well, most of the votes went to the Malcolm Goodwin episode. It totally makes sense to me because, ending from both of the Cheese Doo Wops aside, I actually liked the first one better. Wayne's opening verses were both equally funny, but then it came down to the rest of the original Doo Wop. I feel like Gary's lactose intolerant pun, followed by Colin's "that's not gouda," and "without you I can mon bear," that was a better mashup for me personally. That second Cheese Doo Wop, just as hilarious, but it cannot beat the one from the Malcolm Goodwin episode. And our Whose Line historian, as some people on the chat call him, from the Watch Whose Line Tonight team, Spence12 Metby says, he's also more partial to the Goodwin playing. This is what he had to say. And I quote, "It felt like that was more of a first playing. They have their puns ready and fresh. The second one looks as if they were ordered a second go and weren't happy about it. Just watch Wayne's reaction in the beginning, Colin too." I actually did not catch those reactions, so I will have to go back and check. Thank you for that, Spence. And then he also says, "I had a theory after the second one aired that it seemed as if the ender really belonged to the second one." So here's what I mean by that for those of you listening that don't know what I mean or what Spence means. Remember in the second Doo Wop with Gary's "I mean our lives are pretty great," the cheese puns one, it turns out, and you probably cannot hear the clip, I don't think anyway, going back to the Malcolm Goodwin episode, but after the Doo Wop, when the performers are going back to their seats, if you listen closely or put closed captions on, you can hear Colin say, "I was gonna do the great one." So, yeah, you know what, Spence, you may be onto something there. But anyway, the rest of you get the main gist. Spence kind of summed it up really nicely, but again, the one from the Malcolm Goodwin episode, that Cheese Doo Wop, that first one truly did feel like a first playing, and the second Doo Wop, I guess when you think about it, really does feel like more like a second playing, one that was just ordered on the fly and like totally unexpected. Maybe for that second Doo Wop, Colin, Gary, and Wayne were not as ready. Who knows? Anyway, so that's it for this cheesy, short, but nonetheless special edition of Whose Line Highlights. Again, the next new episode of Season 17 is coming your way this Friday, February 19th at 8/7 Central on the CW network with the sensational Greg Proops. So you don't want to miss that. Also, if you would like an encore of either one of those two Cheese Doo Wops, feel free to watch them again on YouTube. They should still be up on YouTube, and if so, you'll find the links to those Doo Wops in the description. And I also want to give a quick shout out to the Watch Whose Line Tonight team, full of wonderful Whose Line fans and members like myself and Spence 12 Medby. If you would like to join, please send me a message on Twitter telling me, hey man, I want to join the Watch Whose Line Tonight team. Is there anything I need to do? And we'll go from there. And for more from the Whose Line Highlights podcast, don't forget to stay connected with me on Twitter, Instagram, at Postmaster Radio. And although the episode you're listening to right now is on YouTube, just keep in mind that all regular editions of Whose Line Highlights, the ones that involve each hilarious episode, you will have to go to Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio for the full set. The account links are all in the description. Thanks again for listening to this week's podcast. I hope you had a great time. And until we meet again, well, bye for now. See ya!